When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.
Welcome back to the TwinSpires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hanson to look back on two of the major Kentucky Derby prep races from this past weekend. We had the Grade 1 Florida Derby and the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby. We also had two Oaks prep races as well, the Fantasy and the Gulfstream Park Oaks. And then we'll close out the show looking at Pool 6, the final Kentucky Derby future wager of the series, which will happen on Thursday to Saturday, not Friday through Sunday, but Thursday through Saturday this coming weekend. James, I'll start things off with you talking Arkansas Derby. But first, I wanted to switch things up because I know you're a big fan of the White Lotus, and we had episode 6 on Sunday. So telling me your thoughts.
No, come on now. I know you're just joking.
All right.
I'm going to go right with the Arkansas Derby.
A little April Fool's joke for you there, James. I know you really love this show.
Yeah.
But we will go with Sandman instead.
Yeah.
We will talk Sandman, who you predicted would win.
I put on White Lotus right before I go to bed to get to sleep. To prove himself a serious Kentucky Derby contender, Sandman needed to improve upon his first two stakes races this year, a runner-up in the Southwest Stakes and a third in the Rebel, where he rallied essentially belatedly from off the pace in both races while never seriously challenging the winner. And he did that. He did that in the Arkansas Derby. He didn't wait until the stretch to make up all this ground. He launches this move on the far turn, and by the time he gets to the stretch call, a furlong out from the wire, he's a length in front. So he obviously, to me, proved that he's just not this late clunk, or he's not going to be some horse that clunks up for a minor award every time. This was the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby, their biggest race at Oaklawn, and Sandman wins it, going away by about a length and a half or whatever. But the thing about the performance, though, you have to take account of is that he did get an ideal setup. You got Cornucopia and Speed King went out there and just dueled through ridiculously fast fractions that completely set the table for the late runners in the Arkansas Derby. And he beats Publisher, who's still a maiden. The competition figures to get a lot deeper at Churchill Downs. But one thing about Sandman is that, watching, we'll get to his deep stretch performance here soon. But to me, he strikes the lead and he's all over the place. You can make the argument that he is still developing for Mark Casse. We haven't seen his best performance yet, and he's eligible to turn it in on May 3rd at Churchill Downs. He's bred to absolutely relish the mile and a quarter trip. He got a triple-digit speed rating, a 101 Brisnet speed rating in this race, and half the Kentucky Derby field will be lucky if there's 5 or 6 horses that are done it the way things have been going. A lot of low numbers this year. And so Sandman clearly has something going for him in that regard. He's going to bring a big late kick to Kentucky Derby. Of course, we'll see what the pace scenario that could work out against him. Having to close from the back of a 20-horse field could work out against him. But at least, to me, he proved something on Saturday that he's a viable contender.
Vance, what do you think?
James makes a lot of great points about this. I would definitely emphasize the wicked pace that Sandman took advantage of. I mean, this was the kind of a pace he was looking for in some of the earlier preps at Oaklawn, and whether he gets that at Churchill Downs on Derby Day remains to be seen. I think he's going to need something similar to that to put in his best effort. And also, I'd notice, of course, as James did, the weaving in and out just briefly during the mid-stretch. I haven't seen an adequate explanation for why he was doing that, other than the fact that perhaps he was responding to some crowd noise. They did have an estimated 69,000 people at Oaklawn for Arkansas Derby Day. You're going to have more than double that for this year's Derby, so hopefully he can keep his emotions together during the pre-race during the preliminaries and during the running of the race if he gets himself into contention. This was a pretty top-heavy Arkansas Derby. I mean, Sandman and Publisher really asserted themselves here. I don't think Coal Battle proved himself quite a top Kentucky Derby contender following some earlier prep wins. So I would say Sandman obviously is the horse to take away from here, and Publisher. He's still a maiden. That's going to be very difficult to become the first maiden in 90 some years to win a Derby. So Sandman obviously is the one horse you want to take out of this race.
Yeah, Sandman for me, I was kind of kicking myself that I didn't back him on the jury and instead was trying to go with Coal Battle just from the consistency he had shown previously. But Sandman did finally break out of the gate well. The stretch run that we saw, obviously there was greenness there drifting out. And Jose Ortiz mentioned he was a little shy from the whip from the left hand, and that after he used it once, he didn't use it again. He was rolling, but we do want to see improvement there in the Derby. We can't have him drifting out. That's obviously going to potentially cost him in the Kentucky Derby. So also pace scenario, we were talking before the show, how much speed are we going to have signed on in the Kentucky Derby? But we did see improvement from a Bristnet speed rating perspective as well. And Vance, as you mentioned, Publisher, still a maiden, but he's 10th on the leaderboard right now with 60 points. And we've had 3 maidens win the Derby. Buchanan in 1884, Sir Barton in 1919, and Broker's Tip in 1933. So certainly some history to overcome there. It's been a very long time since we've seen it happen. But Steve Asmussen's barn has been firing because we had Tistastic win the Louisiana Derby, and now Publisher finished second in this race. And I thought he had plenty to like coming out of that race. He had a 98 Bristnet speed figure, a career best, and certainly could improve going forward as well. But Sandman does look like a lot of potential there. Again, if he can continue to break out of the gate well, and if he gets that right pace scenario, I think he's one of the top horses heading in to the first Saturday in May. Let's move over to the Grade 1 Florida Derby, and that was won by Tappan Street, which was Darren and my pick in the TwinSpires jury last Thursday. And Tappan Street is a Brad Cox runner. Vance, what were your thoughts on the race overall? We had Matticat Road for Bob Baffert. We had Equos for Saffie Joseph. These horses also have some points toward the Derby leaderboard as well. Sovereignty, of course.
Yeah, another top-heavy race. Tappan Street and Sovereignty both drew outside posts, and the post position obviously didn't play much effect here. They did add some add-up distance, run-up distance to this race. So they ran a little bit over 1.1 miles here, and Tappan Street overcame his relative inexperience compared to Sovereignty. Really good performance, I thought. Sovereignty, I heard jockey Manny Franco said he kind of, the ground kind of got lost underneath him around the far turn, and I think that probably cost him a chance to quicken along with Tappan Street, but he was second best, no doubt about it, in this race. And both of these horses look fairly solid going into the Derby. I would still give perhaps a slight edge to Sovereignty given his experience, especially over the Churchill Downs racing strip. I don't think he ran his very best performance in the Florida Derby. Tappan Street's going to have to overcome some relative inexperience. The Kentucky Derby will be his only 4th career start, but two good efforts by both of these horses, and both of them have a lot of potential going forward.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, with Tappan Street, to me, I liked how he offered a better turn of foot than he had finishing second in the Holy Bull. He really, makes a move on far turn into contention. He still had some work to do to get past the top 2 turning for home, and he just blew right by them into a clear lead by mid-stretch. Was never really, I thought, seriously challenged by Sovereignty late. So it's a very encouraging performance. And Ashley, you sort of mentioned, I'm a little bit, we'll see what happens. We got 4 preps this weekend, so things can still change. We could get more speed in the field. Doesn't appear to be a lot of speed, though, right at this moment, lining up for the 20-horse field. So a horse with tactical ability like Tappan Street, would offer some appeal in my mind. I will say his inexperience is a concern, though. A horse could win the Derby with 3 starts, if he's Justify or, supremely talented, but it's typically a negative. And the fact that he isn't going to have a 100 brisnet speed rating. I mean, we've seen horses Rich Strike and other upsetters perhaps do so, but typically horses have run faster in previous starts. I will say the slow pace contributed to to Pan Street only getting a 99 figure. There just was a really slow pace considering the way the track was playing Saturday. But it was a good performance, and he's a candidate to keep progressing over the 5 weeks from the Florida Derby to the Kentucky Derby. I'm not ruling him out of as a contender, but I definitely do have some concerns.
I need to ask Brad Cox how he says that horse's name. I've been saying Tappan Street, now I'm thinking it's Tapan Street. I don't know. You say tomato, I say tomato. But overall, yes, I agree a lot with the potential pace affecting the numbers here. An 89 Brisnet speed figure overall. He'll be one of the lightliest raced colts in the Derby. And we were just talking about with the Arkansas Derby, Sandman has 8 lifetime starts. Publisher has 7 and still a maiden. And then with Tappan Street to Pan Street, 3 lifetime starts. So plenty to build upon, but yes, lack of experience here. And then with Sovereignty, I almost wonder, did Bill Mott say to maybe not take too much out of him in this race? He finished second. Could he have given more, or was it a case of, he's already in the field? So do we want to really push him in the finish, or did they potentially lay off a little bit? There's a question there. Bill Mott doesn't have a Florida Derby yet, though, so I think he would come in wanting to win that Florida Derby, but you also want to keep your horse fresh for the Kentucky Derby as well.
I will say, as far as Sovereignty goes, I got a little bit of. I'd like to see both. I thought in both these races, he's like waiting to the stretch to really try to reel these horses in, and I'd like to see a little bit of a better turn of foot from him on the far turn in his 2 preps this year. With that being said, you can go back and watch the Street Sense, and he was pretty impressive that day at Churchill Downs. But still, he's like a real dedicated late runner and was really being urged along by the jockey in the Florida Derby. He did make up ground nicely in the stretch, but he's going to have to get in gear a lot sooner, seemingly, at Churchill Downs to win the Kentucky Derby from off the pace.
Let's move over to the Kentucky Oaks prep races, also awarded 100 points to the winner of each. And we'll start with Oaklawn and the Fantasy, which was won by Quiet Side. She has now won back-to-back after taking a while since breaking her maiden to get back in the winner's circle. So, James, what were your thoughts overall on Quiet Side's win?
I liked it. I mean, I was dubious of Quiet Side coming in this year. All she did was run second or third in all of her stakes attempts. She didn't look like she was a blow to me. But this is her second victory in a row. She did a good job, I thought, reeling in 5G and the Honeybee in her previous start. That filly came back and flattered her by winning the Gulfstream Park Oaks that we'll talk about here soon. And you can see she's basically sitting there just stalking, Simply Joking in second. And, not going head to head really with the pace setter who ran a good race finishing second. But Quiet Side is showing more as a 3-year-old. Had to put away the speed, I think in both races, and I think both 5G and Simply Joking are relatively talented 3-year-old fillies. So I got to give her credit for that. And she's just coming on at the right time for John Ortiz. Now, one question I do have a little bit with her is that I'm a little bit worried that maybe the mile and a 16th is a better distance for her than 9 furlongs. But, I'm definitely not going to, I think the Kentucky Oaks hierarchy is real easy to see. It's Good Cheer right now and everybody else. And so among everybody else, to me, Quiet Side coming off these back-to-back stakes wins at Oaklawn in the Honeybee and now in last Saturday's Fantasy, she has just as good a chance in a sense as anybody else.
Vance, do you agree?
I do. The Honeybee Stakes, as mentioned, Quiet Side won the Honeybee and the Fantasy. 5G was second in the Honeybee and then won the Gulfstream Oaks, which we'll talk about. That bodes well for Muhima, who's the early favorite for Friday's Ashland at Keeneland. She ran third in the Honeybee, so that's turned out to be a very key race. And I agree with the sentiments James and you, Ashley, mentioned that, we kind of wondered how good was this filly last year when she was just settling for second and third in a lot of the top races. But now that she's won 2 in a row, her confidence has got to be sky high. And as James mentioned, it's Good Cheer's kind of at the top of the table right now. And then there's this large group of fillies not too far behind her, if she happens to not run her best race on Oaks Day. And I would put Quiet Side definitely among the probably top 5 contenders for the Oaks. I mean, I just think she's turned the corner, as James said, and she's really shown herself to be a quality filly this winter at Oaklawn.
I agree she's turned the corner, and should be noted, she has already faced Good Cheer, but that was as a 2-year-old in the Goldenrod. Good Cheer got the win that day by 2.5 lengths. Quiet Side was second, but does seem like she has really turned that corner. Had a 94 Brisnet speed figure in the Honeybee, a 93 in the Fantasy. I also think you have to take away some positives from Simply Joking, who had a little bit longer of a layoff coming into this race. She was supposed to run in the Rachel Alexandra and had an illness, and she was beaten just 3/4 of a length, and then she galloped out well in front after they crossed the wire, going a mile and an eighth. Maybe she's the better option there between her and Quiet Side. So I know there was a lot of compliments from John Ortiz and Jose Ortiz after this race regarding Simply Joking. She seems like a really tough filly, and one that you certainly can make some excuses for why maybe she didn't get the win in this race, but going forward, she could be one to play in the Kentucky Oaks. Let's now move over to the Gulfstream Park Oaks, where 5G went gate to wire in that win. Vance, thoughts on 5G?
I don't have any positive thoughts about the race in general. I mean, 5G obviously looked pretty good, but this was not a very good field that she faced. The runner-up, I think, graduated in a maiden claimer, if I'm not mistaken. So she wasn't facing a very strong group here. She was a real heavy favorite, got a pretty comfortable lead on the front end and then kind of scooted away at the end. So for her, I mean, it was a pretty good performance, but she simply wasn't beating anything of the quality that she's going to be facing at Churchill Downs in the first part of May. And like I said, she did run second in the Honeybee Stakes and flattered the form of that race. So she has faced some good fillies and run against some good fillies previously, but I'm not sure she's going to be taking a lot out of beating this kind of a field going forward.
James, what about you?
Yeah, her main rival, the Queen's MG, she didn't fire, and then had to be eased and pulled up. But Vance is right. I mean, 5G really she took advantage of a favorable situation on Saturday where she was the lone speed against a bunch of fillies that were big question marks, at least go in 2-turn stakes races. The runner-up is exiting like a maiden claimer or maiden optional claimer, and the one thing I take away from the Gulfstream Park Oaks, though, is that 5G is going to probably be part of the pace in the Kentucky Oaks. She does add some speed to the race. I look at Simply Joking; she's got some speed. Maybe we'll see another filly or two from the Gazelle, Ashland, and Santa Anita Oaks materialize, and all that benefits Good Cheer. I mean, she's a dedicated closer that would love to see put like more, some speed added to the prospective Kentucky Oaks field. And 5G is going to be doing that. She's going to take them as far as she can, or try to take them as far as she can. I'm sort of dubious of her chances going a mile and an eighth, and stepping up to do so against better fillies and with more pressure at a longer distance.
I'm with you all. I didn't necessarily feel overly confident with 5G heading to the Kentucky Oaks out of this race. She is third on the leaderboard with 125 points right now, behind Good Cheer, and then Quiet Side at the top right now with 168. And 5G got a 95 Brisnet speed figure for this performance. Just really didn't feel like she had a lot of strong competition here. And going forward, I just don't factor her as one of the top horses. But as you mentioned, one thing to take away, she'll be part of that early pace. So depending on what other horses go to the front, we'll see how that factors in overall for the Kentucky Oaks picture. But just not feeling like, of the two prep races, I would give Quiet Side more of the advantage heading into the Kentucky Oaks personally. But I was surprised when we had pool 5 in the Oaks future wager, 5G was 15-1 at the end of that future wager. So there was money coming in on this horse. A lot of people seemed to see something in her. And so far right now, I mean, getting the win in a grade 2 heading into the Kentucky Oaks, maybe there is something that I'm missing, but the public seemed to like her in that future wager at least.
Yeah, I think her speed was appealing. Yeah, we talked about it, but I'm going to take away Quiet Side as a more serious win contender than 5G from those races. But both fillies at least stepped up and put themselves in the mix.
Well, we'll close out with pool 6 of the Kentucky Derby future wager, unless you do want to talk White Lotus, James. But I think the answer is no on that. So we will talk about the final pool Thursday at noon through Saturday at 4 p.m. Right before we have the Wood Memorial, the Bluegrass, and we also have the Santa Anita Derby. So you won't get to see those races before wagering closes. But this is the final pool of the future wager. And James, initial takeaways from the odds that came out today via press release around, I think, 10 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, well, you get this last pool 6 of the Kentucky Derby future wager. It's 4 weeks out. It's it's a different dynamic than the previous ones that were like more seemingly months out, where it was like there was more of an opportunity to search for value. To me, like pool 6 is a chance to really just try to bet horses you think are serious win contenders that are going to be shorter prices. And with 4 of the major preps being run, that does give an opportunity with the pool 6 closing before, especially the Santa Anita Derby and the Bluegrass this Saturday, to take a look at those horses in context of like winning the Kentucky Derby. First off, I'll start with journalism. It's hard for me to imagine betting him. He's going to be the individual favorite on Saturday when the pool closes. It's hard for me to imagine betting him and being confident that his price is going to be higher than that you won't get a higher price in the Kentucky Derby, because there's no guarantees that he's going to run this race that's going to drive his price way down on Derby Day. So I look at like horses like Barnes or Citizen Bull. If you think they have a chance, you could get some value before the Santa Anita Derby is run, and you really like them to win the Kentucky Derby. They might offer some value. You might get a price higher this weekend in pool 6 than you will on Derby Day. The same goes for Burnham Square and Chancellor McPatrick in the Bluegrass. With the victory in that race by either colt, I think they will be viable win contenders in the Kentucky Derby. And you're going to have a chance with Burnham Square at 40-1 on the morning line this weekend and Chancellor McPatrick at 30-1 to get them at a higher price than you will on Derby Day if they win the Bluegrass Stakes. So that's sort of like context. I'm looking at it through these horses in the final prep, and me looking at ones I think will run big in the Derby and potentially big on Saturday, and trying to get a little value that way.
Vance, were there any prices that stood out to you?
I would just say that the Wood Memorial, even though it hasn't been a very productive Kentucky Derby prep in recent years, I think you'd have to at least take a look at the 2 main contenders for that race before this pool closes. Captain Cook, the Withers winner, he's going to probably be among the top 2 or 3 finishers in the Wood on Saturday. He's just doing excellent for trainer Rick Dutrow right now. Dutrow's can't talk positively enough about this horse, so he should run a good race. And then also we have the Chad Brown trained Hill Road, who's ran a distant 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, had his comeback delayed a bit this spring, but then finished 3rd in the Tampa Bay Derby. He's going to benefit from additional distance in the Wood and possibly a deeper, more tiring surface that will help a closer like him. So I think you're going to get really nice prices on both of these horses before the pools close, and I think they both should run well enough in the wood on Saturday to both qualify for the Kentucky Derby. So you're going to get a good price on both of these horses if you're interested in them going forward.
For me, I was looking at, you can do win or exacta wagering for this future wager. And so I was looking at some longer prices to maybe play in that exacta. And I think Turfway Park and Fairgrounds could be some key tracks to look at here, especially Turfway. We've had two fills and Rich Strike finish 1 and 2 in the Kentucky Derby recently here. And then we also have the Louisiana Derby as a very key prep for the Kentucky Derby. So we had Tistastic win that, which I'm not feeling especially confident about Tistastic, but you also had Chunk of Gold, the runner-up, a closer who's 30-1, potential to play in your exacta. There was also, let's see, as far as the ones that have been at Turfway, we just had in the Jeff Ruby, we had Final Gambit and we had Flying Mohawk, who potentially could show up and run a big race in the Kentucky Derby, and you're getting 40-1 on Final Gambit and 60-1 on Flying Mohawk. So those were some prices I thought were worth looking at if you want to play the exacta wager in the future wager. As far as a win wager, it kind of seemed logical where the prices fell. Journalism at 4-1. Then you had 10-1 for Citizen Bull. You also had Tap In or Japan Street and Sovereignty at 10-1 on the future wager. So not sure I like those prices heading into the Kentucky Derby, but some to certainly look at. Those are the top players right now, but that could all change after 4 p.m. when we have the 3 significant prep races on Saturday as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see with Barnes being listed at 15-1 and Citizen Bowl being listed at 10-1 at like 3:45 or so, right before the pool closes at 4 p.m. what their prices are, because could give you an indication. These people, I think people around Baffert and the barn are looking at these horses, and I'd be interested to see if there's a big gap in the betting between the two of them.
Again, Pool 6 is noon Thursday through 4 p.m. Saturday at TwinSpires.com on the TwinSpires app. And we will be back next Tuesday to look at all of those major prep races on Saturday, including as well as Keeneland's opening weekend, which starts on Friday. So stick with us next Tuesday to look at all of the big stakes action and watch out for those April Fool's jokes.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.